It's another episode of the Gauntlet Podcast. My name is Jason.
My name is David.
My name is Dan.
Great. Well, it has been a few weeks since we have recorded. We were on a little bit of a hiatus. We have been playing a lot of games, and so I think we are going to spend the entirety of this episode just talking about the games we've played. We have a lot of ground to cover, so why don't we just dive right into it? So the first game on the list is Zombie Cinema. David, you were in that one with me. I think I'll go ahead and set it up, though. Zombie Cinema is a story game. I cannot remember the author's name. In any case, it was a name that I would totally butcher. I remember that much about it, so I'm not going to even bother. It's probably best just to not say it as opposed to try to say it badly.
Right, yeah. So in the future, if any designers want credit for their games, have a pronounceable last name.
John
Yes.
Smith.
There you go.
Yes,
Yeah.
I will definitely be able to pronounce that. Zombie Cinema was really good. It's a story game in which the goal of the game's goal is to tell the story of classic zombie movies, right? The way it's set up is you have these, every player, there's no GM, it's GM free or GM full if you prefer. Every player grabs these three cards, and these three cards have like descriptive text, things like your profession or like your state of mind, and using those three cards, you sort of create a character. You have a board. It's a little bit like a board game in the sense that you have a board and you have pawns that are moving forward and backwards on this board. But the really cool thing that the game does is the movement of the pawns does not represent a spatial relationship between anyone. Like there's a zombie pawn and there's a pawn for each player, and the zombie pawn is inexorably moving forward and the players are moving forwards and backwards, ultimately trying to get to the escape by moving forwards. But the board does not represent any kind of like spatial distance between the players. The really cool thing the game does, what the board is it represents the story beats of a zombie film. Does that make sense?
Could you give an example?
Sure. So the zombie pawn starts on the very like first space of the board, and the player pawns start a few spaces up. Okay. Every space on the board represents kind of the progress of a zombie movie. So, and kind of how we perceive the zombies. So the first space for the zombies is you hear rumors of zombies, right? Like radio, like for example, you hear like strange stories about people attacking people on the radio or whatever, that kind of thing, right? Or maybe you hear like, rumors of like people wandering around in the streets, whatever, that kind of thing. And then when they move up, the state of the zombies is the zombies are on screen, but you only encounter them in like packs of 2 or 3, and they can,
Okay, right.
And then it progresses eventually to the zombie horde is big enough, but is quite big, but you can still safely hide behind the fortified walls of a safe space, right? Like a hospital or something, right? Or a jail or a prison. And then eventually it gets up to the zombies overrun that space, and so on. So the zombies are inexorably moving forward on that track, representing kind of like the overall pace of like the film.
So do they always get to the last spot? Is that how you tell
not
when it's over or
necessarily.
something?
No, because you stop the game whenever all the characters have either escaped or are eaten.
Okay.
And I think that would be hard for, it'd be impossible actually for the zombies to reach the last space and the people not have been eaten or escaped.
Okay.
Right. I mean, the last space is escape, so the zombies can't ever escape.
Yeah, it would be really unusual for them to even get to the next to the last space. Like it would be just because at that point, I imagine most of the people would be eaten or whatever. So the players, though, they're moving forwards and backwards. You frame up scenes. The conflicts are always between players. So, or for the most part, they're between players. Just like in zombie movies, like the true horror is man,
right?
It's humanity, not the zombies. The zombies are just an allegory or whatever, right? Depending on how the scene comes out, you will either move forward or backward on the track. If you move backward, it means you're closer to being killed by the zombies in the fiction. If you move forward, it means you are closer to escape. You can also sacrifice yourself and move a number of spaces backwards, which will move another character an equal number of spaces forward on the board, putting them closer to escape, which I think is also very thematic for zombie films, right? There's always like the classic, a character sacrifices themselves for another character. I think the game is really great. David, what are your thoughts?
I really loved it. I loved the story that we told with it. I love the different ways that you can change it. You can set it in all kinds of themes and all kinds of settings, and essentially tell very different stories playing this one mechanical zombie story. And it did a really good job of, just like zombie movies, it's not about the zombies, it's about the people.
Right, yeah.
And I loved that. I'm a big fan of zombies in general, and this really hit home for me of what I want like a role-playing game about zombies to be about.
I agree. One of the things that I've always not enjoyed about zombies in games, particularly zombies in board games, I guess, but also even in some role-playing games, to be honest, the focus tends to be like fighting the zombies. That tends to be the focus, right? The focus is combat and finding a shotgun, and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think that's the interesting part of zombie films. I don't think that's the interesting part of zombie stories. And so, yeah, you're right. This game definitely does a good job of like kind of conveying that more. You're right. Exactly what you just said. That was terrible. Sorry, I'm a little rusty, folks. No, so it was great. One of the things I thought was really great about it comes in a VHS box, which is pretty badass. It's like an old, like nasty looking VHS box, all the little board and the pieces come in it. And just to kind of hit home the idea that, this is about like, it's kind of a wink, wink, nod towards the, to the genre, I guess, which is pretty cool. I'm all about gimmicks, especially, stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's a good gimmick.
Did you see, completely off topic, the Kickstarter for the game that comes as a scroll?
I did see that. Everyone's talking about that right now on Google+. I have not. Was there a video? I don't think there was a video.
I never watch Kickstarter videos.
I don't think there was a video, which is why I didn't back it. So no video, no backy. No, I mean, I just need to go back and read it in more depth. I just was not in a place where I wanted to read something, so there was no video. I was like, oh, that looks cool.
Are you ever in a place where you want to read something?
I do read. That's just a joke. In fact, right now I'm in the middle of Joe Abercrombie. In fact, one of the Iron Law or whatever trilogy. It's pretty good. So total distraction. Thank you, Dan, for
no problem
driving us completely off the rail there. So yeah, Zombie Cinema. It was awesome. I definitely want to play it again. Maybe like you said, David, you could do it in any kind of setting. I think a setting outside of the normal 1960s zombie setting would be pretty cool. That's what we did, just to kind of play it safe for the first time we played it. But
right, and like tropes do, it really streamlined our storytelling. We were all hitting the same vibes, and it was really easy to do that. But if you played the game a few times with the same group, you could definitely do a more ornate setting. Yeah,
I've heard of people doing like a masked ball in Venice, that kind of thing, with zombies. I could see that. That'd be kind of neat. Pretty cool. Because the little cards that you set your characters up with are generic enough to where you can make any kind of character with them.
Okay, so you could reinterpret that for whatever setting.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think like the most specific one is like medical professional. I think is the most specific thing, but the rest of them are a little bit like more like about a theme, like a parent, or that kind of thing, a child,
like
that kind
mine
of thing.
Was like a minority, and then another card was like driven by lust or something like that.
Okay. Right. So you could kind of slot them in pretty easily to anything. Zombie Cinema was pretty cool.
Cool.
It looks like the next game on the list is The Final Girl. That was you, Dan. So tell us about it.
Well, so that is not The Final Girl at all. That was a reskin of The Final Girl that co-host Scott came up with at some point, I think, during
Has he earned the title of co-host Scott?
He has hosted in the past, so why not? I feel like that's like a title like president, right? You're never not the president after you've been a president.
Oh, right. Yeah, you're always senator this or that.
Exactly, yeah. So anyway, a reskin of The Final Girl, and the idea is you are all in feudal Japan, and there's a daimyo with an unappealing daughter that he's trying to marry off, and you are all trying to avoid being the one who has to marry her, but you can never actually say you don't want to marry her, because that would be incredibly disrespectful to the daimyo. And so there's a lot of trying to weasel out of these promises of marriage without making it seem like you're trying to weasel out of getting married. This was like a super pre-alpha, because I think this came up during one of your like mandatory fun clubs or something, right?
So context for the listeners, one of the scheduled events that we do is called Mandatory Fun Club. And the idea was one day we were going to all get together and we were each going to present an idea for a reskin of The Final Girl, because The Final Girl is kind of like kind of the house game of the Gauntlet, right? We play a lot of The Final Girl. So we were going to do like a reskin of it. And I ended up canceling that, not canceling the event, but canceling the idea, just because we had been playing a lot of Final Girl up to that point and I was kind of sick of it. And so I just thought we would just kind of hold off on that. But people had some really good ideas for what they wanted to do with their reskin.
Yeah, I was sad that you took it down. I wanted to do a sweet pageant Final Girl.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah, a lot of people had great ideas. And then I felt like an asshole for canceling it, because I was like, oh man, everybody was really into this except me, apparently. So, but my opinion is the one that matters. So yeah, no.
And thus the gauntlet goes.
Exactly. But no, Scott had a really cool idea. That's this sort of like inverse Final Girl, where the point is to get eliminated, not to stay.
Yeah.
So question. I have a few questions about it, actually. So was every character just a Ronin? Or a samurai?
Well, so I don't know what Scott's actual intentions were for it, but we each made like one Ronin type guy before we were like, well, I don't know how to make another guy who's not the same, right? So then it was like, now one of them's a raccoon dog and one of them is a tree spirit or something like that, right? So, which, I mean, made it kind of ridiculous, but it really hammered home the fact that this guy was completely desperate to marry off his daughter and would accept anyone, slash any raccoon dog who showed up. Right.
Was there a purple pansexual kitsune?
There was not.
Oh, okay.
But it would have fit in with the rest of the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, it was a really early draft. Like it was kind of, I think it was basically I have an idea and we're going to do this like reverse Final Girl. But, we ended up playing by completely different rules every round as we were like, well, that didn't work at all. Let's try like what happens if you can give low cards to somebody instead of high cards and all of this. So we had a lot of rounds that were like really short and a lot of rounds that were really long because like just the mechanics weren't
clicking. Because you're trying different things out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But, there was definitely something there at some points because it's a lot of fun to, say really nice things about someone to screw them over because there's like this self-deprecating aspect of it where it's like, well, I'm not good enough, but clearly my friend here and like serving up your friends by saying incredibly like flattering things about them. In order to screw them over is a lot of fun. So,
hey, I'm just having a thought. I know that Scott listens to the podcast, and so this maybe I'm directing this at him directly. But I think it would be very interesting to just maybe take this idea and just make a wholly new game out of it, right?
Yeah,
it could probably work. It could be that the Final Girl isn't the answer. I mean, maybe the Final Girl was the inspiration, but it sounds like there's something really cool there.
Yeah,
and it might require like some other, type of, some other system. But that sounds pretty neat. Cool. I have to say, I'm very pleased with. I feel like in the Gauntlet, we're starting to like spread our wings a little bit in terms of like our gaming goals. Our goals are expanding beyond just playing lots of games, but also like looking at how to design games, and I think that's pretty fun. I feel like that's a current in the an undercurrent in the community right now,
right?
Of people wanting to like fiddle with things and create things, and I think that's pretty sweet. So, well, what's the next game on the list? Mortal Kombat X, it would seem. That is not a role-playing game. That's a video game. That was myself and David and a few other terrible players of Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat X is a brand new Mortal Kombat game. It's very, very good. It's quite bloody and disgusting, and we spent a lot of time just kind of fiddling with looking at all the fatalities and stuff, and looking at all the sort of like extra material. The game is just just stuffed with content. I love it. Thoughts on Mortal Kombat, David?
Oh yeah, it's definitely, if you are a fan of the franchise, it does the things that you want out of Mortal Kombat. One of those things is probably not story. It is definitely going on a ladder and fighting your way to the top, and then having a boss fight that's challenging, and doing sweet fatalities.
Yeah, it was good. I discovered something very interesting. I had a little bit of an epiphany during this evening of Mortal Kombating. So I'm a little bit older than some of the other players in the Gauntlet. And I discovered that there is a generational divide when it comes to fighting games. There is a hard generational divide. So I think here's my theory. Here's what I'm just hang in there with me. I think that at a certain point, people only started to really care about story in video games. Like story became the main thing. Whereas prior to that, it was gameplay, right? Like the story meant nothing. Like, what's the story of Donkey Kong or Super Mario Brothers, right? There's none. Not really, right?
Sure, yeah.
You gotta save the princess or whatever, right? And so I think that there are certain video game players of a certain age who are they don't have the hand-eye coordination and motor skills necessary to like really successfully play a fighting game because they didn't come up with that kind of gaming. They came up, their era of gaming was the everyone gets a trophy era of gaming. You just got to get to the end so you can see the sweet cutscenes. And so that was very much on display, I think, during our Mortal Kombating. What do you think, David?
I agree that there is generationalism in how the video games are developed, and it's so apparent when you have the option to skip fights during the story mode.
You do. That's true. That's actually true. You can just skip fights. You can be like, skip.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It does cost you an in-game currency to do that, but I mean, why would you ever skip a fight? Why are you there if not to fight? But I have to disagree that the skill is generationally based.
Yeah, I think everyone at Evo is like 14, right?
Oh, well, that's true. No, I mean, I'm setting aside hardcore gamers of any age, or hardcore fighting gamers of any age, setting them aside. I think there's a sort of like, it's like riding a bicycle. You never forget how to do it, right? Like, I've been playing Street Fighter since I was a wee lad, and I'll never forget, my thumbs will never forget how to do, half circles and quarter circles and combos and stuff, right? I'm not a great fighting game player. There's no way I could compete at, some kind of professional level. But just in terms of like, just general basic foundational skills, I think this poor upcoming generation will never have it. It's sad.
They're just too busy hunting monsters.
They're too busy hunting monsters. Yeah. Hunting monsters and looking for the cutscenes. That's it. That's all they do. And collecting stuff, collecting their sweet armors and loots. And anyway, Mortal Kombat's awesome. I love it. It was
Great game.
Really, really good. The next thing on the list was a Sunday game, the Shab-al-Hiri Roach. And that was David and myself. It was a lot of fun. Like every game of the Shab-al-Hiri Roach, it also has lots of problems. Like every game of the Shab-al-Hiri Roach. The main problem, I still believe, is the fact that you can get the Roach right away. You can get the Roach immediately upon starting to play. Should I set the game up for people?
Yeah, I want to do a quick one.
Okay,
yeah.
Real quick. We've talked about it before, but basically, it is a Jason Morningstar game. The idea, very easy name to pronounce, by the way, Jason Morningstar. So,
well done being born with that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Good job. So every player plays a professor at a New England college, circa 30-ish or something like that. And it's a very prestigious university, Pemberton University. The point of the game is you are all like, you have like these petty like academic squabbles, and you're always trying to like one up each other and gain the most prestige at the university. But at some point, someone will take the Roach. This Roach being an ancient Sumerian god king that wants to impose its will upon the cattle, as it were. The Roach was something that some entomologist found or whatever from the university and brought it back. It takes you over, and then your character becomes really crazy and like filled with mania and megalomania and murderous rage sometimes, and you're trying to do all these crazy things. The Roach is commanding you to do all of these crazy things, and
and you kind of draw a card every turn, right?
Yeah, it tells you what
has a random command that you have to follow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It gives you these commands, and it's just a crazy gonzo fun game. The biggest problem with the game in general, I think, and also with our game specifically, was or our session specifically, was the fact that we had 3 characters start with the Roach, right? Because it's just a random chance. And we had 3 of 6 characters start with the Roach. As a result, our game had nothing even remotely resembling a story. It was just pure, utter fucking chaos, like for 3 solid hours. Like it was just madness and gonzo craziness. A lot of fun. Not exactly the most satisfying outcome, but anyway. What were your thoughts, David?
Right. So I was fortunate enough to not have taken the Roach right off the bat.
Your character was probably the most interesting one as a result, I think. But.
Yeah, I mean, he got to have a progression where the other characters just kind of had to go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds.
Right.
And that is a problem. And I think this game is like makes a really good case for maybe sound mechanics don't necessarily dictate fun, but they definitely help it a lot.
Yeah, it's one of those hard games because, I'm a big proponent of this idea that good solid mechanics are necessary for the long-term enjoyment of the game. I always go back to my Pathfinder card game example, right? That was a fun game the first few times we played it, but it didn't have any staying power because it's not very good, like it wasn't super satisfying.
Right.
It was fun. Like the few times, when we were playing it, it didn't have any depth. I couldn't really like get into it. Right. And the mechanics weren't like dependable enough to feel satisfying for me. The Shab-al-Hiri Roach is in kind of that same space for me a little bit. It's always very fun when we play, but I can't help but notice its problems. I guess the good thing is Jason Morningstar has said that he's going to redo it. They're revising it because he's learned a lot about game design since then. And I can't wait. Like, I'm really excited about a revised Shab-al-Hiri Roach because I do love to play it, but I always feel like, oh gosh, like this just needs
right.
This needs a few things. Yeah.
As is. There are victory conditions, which is important to a PvP role-playing game. But you cannot care about the victory conditions or it won't work very well. Yeah,
it's like, because it's a competitive thing, but like a lot of times the die rolls, they just feel super arbitrary. There are weird incentives to behave like in a way that it's not really honest or
there
to
are-
the story. You know?
I mean, there are mechanical incentives or mechanical dictations that make you hurt yourself mechanically, even though like it's not even telling that interesting of a story.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like just doing something like punishing for just the sake of it. You know, it's weird. But anyway, that said, we had some great scenes. A lot of the players were really on their A game. Like they were really getting into the spirit of the game. It's just a bit messy. So you've played the Shab-al-Hiri Roach, right?
I have, yeah.
I think it kind of depends. I don't think our game was that way necessarily.
No, I've only played it once, and we didn't have the problem where apparently a bunch of people can get roached immediately.
Yeah, it
and
makes a
so
huge
we had
difference.
a lot of room to like let our characters kind of breathe in the beginning, and we slowly ramped up to crazy, and we had just gotten to like the right level of crazy by the end of the game.
And I think that's the answer there, right? Ours went off the rails immediately because so many people had the roach right away. I guess that's an easy house rule. You could probably fix that pretty easily. But I try to play things rules as written, and rules as written, you can get the roach right away.
Right.
So I hope that's one of the things they change in the revision. I really hope that's
I would be surprised if it wasn't.
Yeah, I think so. And also the die rolling mechanic. We've talked about this before, but it's also just kind of like random and arbitrary. It doesn't like it's just totally random. Like you're doing all this stuff to build these die pools, but ultimately it doesn't mean much. Like it doesn't feel particularly strategic or anything.
Yeah, it's like right now it's like roach wins. If you have a roach, you're winning.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah, if you have the roach, like you're going to dominate. But like it's unsatisfying mechanically, but very satisfying thematically. So
Right. Oh, have you ever seen the trailer for the Shab-al-Hiri Roach?
What do you mean?
There is a trailer for the game Shab-al-Hiri
I
Roach.
did not know that.
If you go in the depths of the Bully Pulpit webpage, you can find it. And I guess this is probably about the time, like, do you remember when book trailers were a big deal online?
Oh,
I feel like this probably hit at about the same time.
Well, I don't read, so
Right, yeah, but I mean, you do spend time online, and that was a thing. Like, book trailers were kind of a big deal for a while, and I feel like this probably hit at about the same time. But there's a very old-timey trailer for the Shab-al-Hiri Roach. You should check it out. I thought it was interesting that it existed.
Okay,
So we'll leave it
cool.
at that. I enjoyed watching it. So
nice, awesome. Shab-al-Hiri Roach. Okay, cool. The next game on the list is I can't read that.
Boss Monster.
Boss Monster. I don't even know what that is. David, what is Boss Monster?
So, Boss Monster was an impulse buy when I was in Dallas playing some games with some friends. And we went to the game shop there. It's a fantastic game shop. I loved it. It was massive. Never been to one that had as much going on as that one did.
What is the name of it?
And now I'm trying to remember. It was Madness in Dallas.
All right.
Yeah, they had just tons and tons of role-playing games, board games, war games, you name it, they had it. They had very knowledgeable staff, and I just kind of happened upon this game. I was attracted to it because of its production value. Okay, so the basic thrust of the game is you are a boss monster, and you are constructing your dungeon that adventurers will come through, and you want them to die before they get to you, and that's how you win the game. You're fighting against other boss monsters in a pseudo-solitaire fashion. Dan, you may love that.
Yeah, it's pretty okay.
So you're just building your dungeon, and the adventurers come through, and they're getting killed by traps or monster rooms, what have you. And if they get to you, you lose health, but if you kill them, you gain souls, and the object of the game is to get 10 souls before anyone else or not to die.
This sounds like Dungeon Keeper. It was a computer game. You played as
I thought I do know about the
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like they just took that and turned it into a card game, basically.
They
Is
may
that
have.
accurate?
They may have. I've never played Dungeon
Okay.
Keeper, but I know what it is.
All right.
The artwork is very much like the 16-bit little characters.
Right.
And they've got some sweet names and little backstories on the bottom of cards for the adventurers and stuff like that. It's really fun in that way. As far as it being a game mechanically, I didn't play it enough to know. There was strategy. It was just, I don't know if the strategy was strong enough to make it through all the randomness that the game generates. Yeah, so you basically are building your dungeon, and it incentivizes different kinds of adventurers to adventure in your dungeon versus other people's dungeon. And if you accidentally, randomly start having a whole bunch of one kind of adventure, somebody else could maybe win before you, just because their dungeon happened to be that way, and not because, they planned it that way or you planned it that way. But the more I played it, the more I saw the strategy develop, and I'm not sure if they did enough playtesting on it to really justify how many adventurers there are, but I think that they did. I want to believe that they did, but I just haven't played it enough to tell.
So I think there's an iOS, like a tablet version of this too.
Really?
Actually, yeah. I think there's actually a Windows Store version of this game because, weirdly enough, I subscribe to a feed that tells me about interesting Windows games. So, because I have a Surface and like nobody makes Windows games, so it's like a thing a week. But yeah, that came up today, so it exists.
Okay. Well,
probably.
there you go.
I can't imagine they only made it for Windows Phone. So
Probably not. But the game was a lot of fun, and if you like that style, they do a very good job of that. The expansions are awesome. The boxes are designed to look like original Game Boy game boxes, with the writing on like the left-hand side,
right, yeah.
Like vertically in a gray box, and then like a picture of like something exciting happening, and like the name in big letters across the top is I love that.
Cool. I mean, was it fun?
Yes, we had fun with it definitely. And the more we played it, the more fun we had. So I want to play it more before I make a final judgment.
I feel like there's a whole thing going on in like card game and board game design where it's all about like 8-bit retro graphics. Is that a thing? I think
that's a thing in society.
Yeah, it's just a thing, right? Yeah. There's a lot of that going on, even in video games too. It's like, it's so...
Right. Well, that's like the default art style, right? For your indie video game, if you don't have an art budget.
Yeah, it's true. You do. You do pixelated 8-bit or kind of like 12-bit. They're like kind of halfway between 16-bit and 8-bit, right? Yeah. Cool. Awesome. I'd never heard of that, but it's I'll have to see if I can see it somewhere. Well, the next game on the list is Dance of the Damned. I was going to make a special point to note the author of this game. I'll make sure I put it in the Google Plus post because I think it's somebody who works in role-playing games a lot, but I just can't remember their name. But I don't think they do story games a lot. I think this was like one of their only forays into story games. Yeah, so I wanted to make a special point of mentioning their name, and I've failed to do that. The game is very, very good. Dan, you were at that one. It was so good. I really loved it. Do you want to do the setup in terms of the story?
Yeah, sure. So it is at some time like Middle Agey, right? Or maybe like, Renaissance,
like 17th century, right? I think, something like that. Yeah.
It's somewhere in Europe. There's a plague going on, and all of the rich people have run off to their castle and shut the doors, and are sitting there with enough food and supplies to last for years. And so they have locked the doors, and they're having a big party while outside everyone dies of the plague.
Nice.
Yeah. Apparently that's an Edgar Allan Poe story.
I was led to believe that it was The Masque of the Red Death.
Yes.
Is the Poe story that inspired this game. I have never read that Poe story, but the way it was described to me, it sounded spot on vis-a-vis what the game is about. So it was very good. It was really more of it was kind of a cross between a role-playing game and a competitive card game. Is that right? Does that seem...
Well, I mean, I don't know. I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of room for playing super strategically.
No, well, I mean, I think there was if we knew the game better. I think I read the rules, so I think that maybe that came across to me a little bit more in terms of just like it felt like...
I don't know, because I felt like...
strategic.
I felt like it would be hard because you're kind of depending on what cards other people play, and you can't necessarily win what you need just with the cards in your hand.
Well, so the way it works mechanically, just so people understand, on your turn, you are the spotlight, or well, you're not the spotlight character. It's just your turn as a player. Your character doesn't even necessarily have to be in the scene. You will target another player. It's very PvP, right? You'll target another player, and you straight away identify what the conflict is about. So there's not a lot of heavy RP because you don't work your way up to it. You kind of immediately say, this is what we're going to have a conflict about. And you play one of your cards from your hand, and depending on which suit that card is, will dictate kind of the nature of the conflict and the nature of the problem being posed to that player. So the four suits and what the four suits of the cards are about, it carries throughout every aspect of the game, which is one thing I liked about it.
Yeah.
Like character creation and scene epilogues and and gameplay. All these four suit themes carried through all the way from A to B, and I really enjoyed that. So hearts represent hope and love,
right?
In these dark times. Diamonds represented decadence or conflicts about just excess, either in terms of food or sex or money or whatever. Clubs were violence, and spades were the plague or decay or despair, right? And so you have your character who is kind of defined by you draw a suit card, and that kind of defines your character in terms of what their jam is and what their position is in this castle. And then you go about, you have these rounds where you target characters and you give them a conflict. The targeted character can respond in kind. They're trying to play a higher card than you, but depending on what suit they play, they respond appropriately. So
Right.
if, for example, I tempted your character, I played a diamond and I said, oh, your character is, they stumbled into a hallway where everyone is drinking and having fun and having sex, and you're a priest and that's not your thing. You're not supposed to do that. But you're finding yourself, you're being drawn to it, and you're going to break your holy vows, right? And you might respond with, say,
like a heart.
A heart, right? And talk about how you go pray, and that gives you like hope for the future, and so you resist the temptation or whatever, right? It's pretty neat. And there's a process whereby you're collecting cards. You put them in front of you, and the cards that you collect dictate kind of what your character's final outcome is. Kind of similar to Fiasco, right?
Yeah,
kind of a similar Fiasco thing. It's competitive. You can win. Everyone has like a secret fate suit that if they can get more cards of that type, then they are the winner.
Right. Let me say, as the winner of this game, winning doesn't do a whole lot for you.
It does nothing. In fact, you're just the winner.
Right. It is completely outside the narrative and everything.
Right,
like you get no benefits to your character or anything.
It's
just like at the end you get a little like round of applause, like a pat on the back, like good job
for
You're
winning
the one
that
who
game.
won.
You're the winner.
Yeah.
You're right. Like it had no bearing on anything because your character's outcome is still determined by the cards that you collect in front of you. We played with a couple of the little variations that are suggested in the book, and I think they were really nice. One of the variations has you just going around the table, not playing any cards at all, but just narrating like your character's arrival at the castle and like kind of describing all the horrors of the plague that are taking place that you witness on the way and that kind of thing. And I thought that was really good for like setting the mood of the story. Yeah. Really solid. Did you like it?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. And I also liked as you're going around. So, even if you can't beat the card that has been played against you, there's a chance for it to go around and other people can play cards as well and describe like what twist happens that like throws it in your favor or against you if you were winning. And so that adds like a nice sort of like semi-democratic voting system on how the story's going to go. Because like, I mean, we all kind of just played to like, I think it would be more interesting if this happened. And so I'm going to help or hurt you accordingly. Yeah,
that mechanic whereby the other players can hurt you or hinder you or help you really, really like rewards good scene framing, right? Yeah. Like if you attack the player with like a really, really good thing, like just narratively it's very interesting and delicious and you're going to win, the other players might have like, there might be strategic reasons why they'd like to see you not win.
Right. And at that point it stops being who has the highest card and becomes like who has the most cards.
Collected the most cards, right.
So, the second person to jump in always decides who the winner is.
Right.
Unless someone else later comes and helps the first person get.
Well, I think it depends on the number of players, but yeah.
So you mentioned that it was a little bit arbitrary who won. Was the conflict setting a little bit arbitrary too, or you just did it mostly for an interesting story, or were you doing it to try and win?
I don't know. What do you think?
I was doing it for the story. Like
I was too, yeah.
Because, I mean, you kind of know where everybody is, right? And so you need to pick somebody who you're going after, and it's going to be the person who you have the best idea how to screw with their character. Because really, like, the way it shakes out, the way you actually earn these cards, you have no idea of knowing who it would be best for you to attack or not, like, who it would be best for you to go after.
Right, yeah. Yeah, you're right, there is a bit of a disconnect between the meta game, the competitive meta game going on. I'm not... And again, because like what you win is just being called the winner, it doesn't mean a whole lot. But I'm normally I'm a little irritated by things like that. But I kind of forgave it in this game because the gameplay was just so fun.
Oh yeah,
it was just super fun and really it was just very, very enjoyable. It has this really nice like one of the features of the game is every time you play it, there's like a trump card. You kind of randomly determine it, and the trump card also it's the suit that we're looking for, the trump suit, and that dictates like what the overarching sort of mood in the castle is. So if your trump is diamonds, your castle is going to be all about excess and decadence, right?
Right.
If it's about clubs, the overarching like mood is going to be violence. And it's mechanically enforced because the trump suit wins in a tie,
right?
Which can happen a lot, right? Ties are pretty common because once people start helping you, the value of the suits is not important as much as it is just the number of cards that get played,
right?
And so you can have ties all the time, and therefore the trump will win, right? And so it kind of mechanically enforces the sort of like overarching theme in the castle or mood in the castle. I really, really like that. It was very,
and
solid.
It also sets the order of all of the suits too. It's not just that we had hearts as our trump. It's not just that hearts is the number one suit and it beats everything else. It's like hearts are first, then like diamonds, then clubs, then spades or something.
Okay.
So it's really hard to win like with spades. Like with the depressing like plague cards, it's hard to win with when hearts is like the overarching theme.
And what it does, I think, is it builds in a lot of replay value, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it apart from the fact that like you can tell it's you're kind of telling the same story every time you play it, I think, but and you might have different characters each time, but the trump and the ordering of the trump suit and the suits that follow, I think would really create a different game. Like if you played it another time, right? And you had a different trump, it would be a very, very different outcome. So, because the weak suit in our game was the spade, which was the plague and decay suit. And so because of that, all of our characters had good outcomes. Like our strong suit was the heart, which is hope, and that was how we ended, right? Like we had all these horrors that were going on and all this decadence and like shameful behavior. But in the end, when it was over, our characters left the castle like feeling hopeful, right? Like we had a great scene where it was one of the last scenes with one of the characters, and I think it was your character, Dan, and they were standing on the parapet, right, like getting ready to kill themselves. I had like played a spade on you and was going to try to make your character jump,
right? Yeah.
Represent like the spade representing despair, and you played back with a higher heart and said, "But no, I see people rebuilding in the distance, and that gives me like, confidence in the future." And so I stepped back from the parapet. It was filled with stuff like that, and I loved it. Like, it was great. Dance of the Damned was very awesome. Why don't we take a little break to give a shout out to our sponsor, Stamps.com, and then we'll come right back.
It's true. How much do you hate the post office?
I hate the post office so much. You know what really sucks about the post office is when you go to the post office and you have to wait literally 18 hours to mail a letter. It is the worst. Stamps.com.
Right. And then you open the mailbox and just bees pour out.
Bees pour out of it. It is kind of the worst, right?
It's terrible, yeah.
And on Thursdays, the gates to hell open up in the parking lot.
Yeah, like, they don't even mention that.
What the fuck is this all about?
You just show up and it's like gates to hell.
Demons everywhere.
Not on Stamps.com. That's all I'm saying.
Stamps.com.
If anybody works for Stamps.com, get in touch with us and we'll give you the address to send a check to.
Indeed. Okay, we're back. So for our most recent mandatory fun club meeting, we did a board game night, German board game night. Well, actually, it was board games with an auction mechanic, but we ended up playing games that didn't necessarily have a strong auction mechanic.
Well, that's some bullshit.
well, so we played 3 games, one of which is purely auction, modern art. The second game is called Hoity-Toity, or you may know it by its original German, Adel-Verpflichtet.
Oh, yeah, right.
Right. And that one has an auction hall location that you can go to, but no actual auction takes place. It's just it's like you're not actually like engaging in an auction. It's just called the auction hall. Good enough for the event, I thought. So I included that one. And then we ended up also playing this game called Bohnanza, which does not have an auction mechanic at all. Fake or otherwise. It has no references to auctions whatsoever. It's a trading game.
So this whole event was a complete farce. That's what I'm hearing.
It's probably about a like 44% farce or like 38% farce. No, it was a lot of fun. Everyone had a great time. So these 3 games, Modern Art, Bohnanza, and Hoity-Toity, or Adel-Verpflichtet, if you will. These are classic German board games, and I have to say, one of the things I love, kind of going back to our earlier conversation about good mechanics, like, well play-tested mechanics, they stand the test of time, right? These games are very old. In Hoity-Toity's case, I want to say the game's like from the mid-90s, I guess, which is pretty early as far as like, German war games go. That's one of the older ones. Very old games, very classics of the genre. They are great. They just held up so good. They were terrific. And I have a feeling in 5 years, the Doom board game is not going to be, people aren't going to remember that as fondly, I don't think, or I'm sure Descent is terrific, but I have a feeling, in 10 years, there's going to be a much, much better version of Descent out there, right? There's never going to be a better version of Modern Art, right? Like, it's perfect. So Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I don't know how much you want to know about them. I don't want to get into all the details of the mechanics, except to say that they're great. You guys should go try them. They're just good stuff. Bohnanza, fun fact. It's Bohnanza, Bohnanza. Bohn being the German word for bean. So it's like beanenza. It's Bohnanza.
That was fun.
Thank you.
Man, that's giving me life.
Well, I will say that I've played Bohnanza, and it is a lot of fun, and that is the proper way to make a game about being a bean farmer, not like whatever the hell Agricola's got going on.
Well, I don't think you grow beans in Agricola, but you do.
I'm sure one of the thousands of cards has to do with beans somewhere.
It's the same designer.
He should stick to beans. Maybe that's the problem, is branching out past beans is when things start to fall apart.
Not a fan of Agricola?
No, I love Agricola.
Oh, what?
Do you like
really
it?
Good. Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, isn't it good? It's so good. Yeah. It's crazy. I just bought the iOS version. It's on sale today.
I kind of contemplated buying that because I was like, when I'm really bored and I have my phone, I could take it out and look at the icon for Agricola. I could be like, it could be worse. I could be more bored.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Wow,
That's
harsh. Jeez.
So I have a question. Why didn't you play Power Grid?
Oh, because we had the number of players we had was not optimal.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
We thought we were going to have X number of players, but we ended up with X +1 or something, and it wasn't quite right. So and also I think by the time I definitely wanted to do modern art, and I definitely wanted to do Autoverpflichtet, and so I think we just didn't have time to play Power Grid at that point either. Okay. So
I was going to say, it's real high up there as far as highly popular game and really sound mechanically, and it's auction themed. So
one of the things that the other three had to recommend themselves to the group was everyone had played Power Grid already.
Oh, okay.
No one had played these, except for me. No one had played these other three games, and so and everyone was really delighted by it because I don't think these are even games you can get anymore. Maybe Bohnanza, but I don't
feel like Bohnanza probably.
You can't get Hoity-Toity or Modern Art anymore. I don't think I'm pretty sure they're out of print. So it was kind of fun. Like everyone, it was like kind of discovering something new, I think, for a lot of people at the table. So that was pretty cool. Listeners don't know this necessarily, but I used to run board games as much as I do role-playing games now. And it felt good to for a night to go back to just a board game night, really good, solid German board game night. It was good. Had a lot of fun with it. So that was board game night. Next thing on the list is Becoming by Brian Engard.
Yeah. So Becoming, we've played quite a few times.
Fair amount. Yeah.
This is actually the first time we ever played it with only 3 people. Normally, the way it works is it's a game about a hero's journey, right? So you have one player who is the hero, and then you have 3 players who are the fates, who are kind of GMs, who are trying to stop the hero, because it is a competitive game, and all of the fates are competing against the hero and against each other. And so the way it starts out is you kind of make your character by picking these assets off a list. And so the hero will have 3 traits that are really good and 3 allies that help him out. And as you go, the fates are kind of putting negative traits on his assets. And if anything ever gets 3 negative traits, then it flips and becomes subverted. And then the hero can't tap into it to help him anymore. But the fates can. Right. So the fates can always sort of use everything that's gone wrong so far. The fates can kind of bring back to help them out on their roles. So this is the first time we've ever played with only 3 people, though. And in that case, there's 1 hero and 2 fates.
Yeah, I'm curious how that affected the way the game feels. Because I've played in the past and I've been the hero and just gotten steamrolled by the fates. Did you have a similar issue?
This was worse.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
This is the first time that I've ever actually seen a scenario where I've seen this played before, because I've seen an AP of the same one that we ran. And it was actually an AP that I think Brian put out during the Kickstarter, where he was playing the hero, and he won in it. But the hero this time...
he designed the game.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, that's what I'm saying. I think there's an optimal way to play, and I think I've sort of puzzled it out.
Oh, no, I was just going to say they let him win because he's the designer of the game.
Oh, yeah, no. I think there's something deeper there. But I think there's a tendency on the part of the hero, because you're trying to build up your die pool by bringing things into play, but everything you bring into play, you put at risk. And so then if the fates win the roll, then they get to put negative traits on everything you've risked so far. So we had a really bad issue here on this game where the person playing the hero put a lot of things at risk initially. And so things started going bad real early in the game, and
okay.
that's real hard to recover from.
Can I ask what the scenario was?
Yeah, so the scenario was, I don't know what the name of it is, but it's about a rock star. Initially, you are just about to sign with the record company, and so normally the fates are very antagonistic, right? They're like fear and pain and doubt and all of that. In this, the fates are selling out and settling down.
Okay. That seems about right. I mean...
Yeah, the way it worked was, you know, the hero kind of got steamrolled, but he actually ended up narratively in a much better place than like Brian Ingard's hero did in the game he won. Because he resisted selling out or settling down, but ended up like having almost everything that he had going for him being corrupted and all of this. And so he was like playing at shitty dive bars or something, but keeping it real. But the hero in ours... had sold out completely and was just like rolling in dough and like happily married and playing songs for children or something, but like actually had a pretty decent end, right? So
well, what was the name of the hero's band?
It was Purple Prose.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I like that. Awesome. I liked Becoming a lot. I've played it. Like you said, we played it a few times. I didn't play in that particular session. There are so many different like settings and stuff out there, and I feel like you would get this is something of a theme. I think in this episode right now, it occurs to me. Do you think the competitive aspect of the game leads to good story? Because like the example you've given, you had like two different outcomes essentially, with two different mechanical outcomes and narrative outcomes that like didn't quite match up. Like, do you think the competitiveness of Becoming leads to a good place in the fiction?
So here's what I've come around to on Becoming is that I don't think it necessarily matters, because I think that the story you're telling is going to be interesting regardless of whether the hero is just completely getting their ass handed to them or if they're actually holding their own. So I don't think we've ever had the hero actually win in any of the games we've played.
I'm pretty sure not, no.
But they've all been really good stories.
Yeah.
So I don't think it necessarily matters. And in this one, like we were playing, the two fates were playing super competitively, and there was like a 1 point difference between them, but like the hero still got crushed.
Yeah.
So,
well, mechanically crushed.
Yeah, mechanically crushed. Yeah. So
cool, interesting. Yeah, I've always enjoyed it. This is something we should explore maybe in the future, like this idea of like what does a competitive role playing game, like what is the competitiveness? What does the competitive aspect bring to it? Can it bring anything? Because of the nature of story games, like will you always have just a good story or a bad story, regardless of what the mechanics, regardless of what the competition is making you do? It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
So the next game on the list, that same day, I played two shorter games. And actually, we had a lot of games that day. That was a Sunday, and we were all playing shorter games, and so we managed to pack a bunch in. But one of the ones I played was called Agent Down. Agent Down, I don't remember the gentleman's name who wrote it. This is my thing tonight. I don't have any author names. I do know that he runs his gaming company is called Groundhoggoth, which is a pretty cool name.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't remember his name specifically. But it was okay. So the game is about a 007 style secret agent. You begin the game by watching his, and I'm putting this in quotes, his death. Like you see like how he dies, but he may not die. It might, like you see him like dying or like falling off a building or whatever, but then you cut away.
Okay.
And you have a sequence of scenes that are like the past, like leading up to that moment. And not even necessarily directly tied to that moment. It could be more like, the beginning of his training as a spy or whatever. But you'll also have scenes that that are necessarily like leading up to that moment, right?
So is this like his life flashing before his eyes?
I think that's the idea. Okay. Yeah, I think that's the idea. It is also a competitive game. This is a thing this week. It is a competitive game. You have one person who's playing the agent, and the other players are playing, I guess, like the opposition. I don't know, their sort of role is undefined. They're just the opposition. Basically, a scene is framed by each of the opposition players, and the agent player gets to choose which one sounds most interesting to him to explore, kind of like cheat your own adventure in a way.
Right.
You choose like, oh, I like that one. He meets a shadowy informant, while he was at college or whatever, that kind of thing. I want to do that one. And then you role play the scene out. Once you get to a point of conflict, you have a decision to make about whether you want to resolve the ending or you want the opposition player to resolve the ending. And there's a whole little mechanical thing. I'm not remembering exactly how it goes right now, but there's a whole mechanical thing going on where, depending on what you choose, you will either receive a face down playing card from the opposition, or you will give them one of your poker chips, I think is how it goes. You have like these 3 poker chips. And depending on what your final outcome is in terms of like, you're each going to make like a poker hand at the end and compare. Whoever has the best poker hand gets some control over the ending of the story, right? There's also something with these poker chips that determines whether you die or live. I might be getting that backwards, but ultimately you're competing for like, to find out whether the agent actually died and whether the agent has like a good career outcome. So they might live, but be shamed because they failed some mission, or they might live and be celebrated, right?
Right.
Or they might die and be remembered fondly, right? So that's kind of what's at stake. It sounds really cool in concept. I didn't love it. And I think the reason why I didn't love it is because the underlying mechanic, the whole like, building the poker hand thing didn't feel very satisfying.
Okay.
And I felt like the incentives were a little off. Like I felt like I was never incentivized properly to let the opposition player end my scene for me or determine my outcome. Like I felt like it was always advantageous for me to just resolve it myself. Like I would resolve it myself and get the best outcome in terms of the mechanics. It felt a little off or wrong. And I didn't prep for the game. Steve did. And so we may have been doing it wrong. I'm not sure. I didn't read the rules, but I remember thinking,
just throw Steve under the bus there.
Well, I mean,
Steve may have fucked this up.
Steve may have totally fucked it up. I don't know. What I mean to say is I at the time, though, it's been a while since we played it. It's been a while since we recorded. I played this ages ago. I remember feeling like I don't have any incentive to like have a bad outcome right now.
Okay.
Like to let the opposition give me a bad outcome. Like I'm not sure what the mechanical incentive is for me to do that. And then also this whole like poker hand thing.
I heard that you don't need mechanical incentives to good role playing.
Well, I know, but
that's what I've heard.
But it's the only thing this game has.
Too.
It is the central conceit of this game. It's unavoidable, right? I don't know. I just wasn't really feeling it. And I didn't like you're building up, you're doing this poker hand thing, right? And I think that was like some attempt to marry the mechanics with the theme because, James Bond like plays cards in casinos and stuff.
That seems like a stretch.
Well,
does he really?
There's a whole movie called Casino Royale.
Yeah.
I mean, he ends up in
plays
casinos. Baccarat. And casinos are a thing in James Bond movies, right? And I think that maybe like that was some attempt to like maybe do a sort of Dust Devil style marrying of the mechanics to the theme or something. I'm not sure, but if that was the goal, it didn't really come off right. But we still had fun with it. It was good. I'd like to read the rules myself just to satisfy myself that we were doing it correctly, but I'm sorry, Steve. I'm sure we were. Steve is very good. I'm sure we were. So anyway, I don't want to like just throw I'm not trying to throw the game under the bus because I'm not 100% sure. And I didn't have time to review the rules before this to verify. I'm just going off my remembered experience. And I remember thinking, this is a solid 6.5 out of 10, So
all right.
It's just kind of, I'd like to try it again. I'm not sure. I was not like loving it. The next game was that we played as well. That same little afternoon was called, I guess Carejen is how you'd pronounce it.
Sure.
It's the abbreviation
for character generation.
Character generation, right? This is mostly just like a little filler game, and in fact, that's what we were doing. We were waiting for your table to finish up becoming so we could all play a big group game together. You can probably play this in like 20 minutes flat, or maybe a little bit longer, if you were really into it, I guess. But the idea is it's not a role playing game at all. It's just an exercise. It's just like a little parlor game or whatever. Everyone goes around the table, and you have like a blank sheet of paper, and everyone goes around the table and says an attribute, a stat, a skill, a piece of gear, or something for a role-playing game character. And it can be anything. And so on my turn, I might say, he can breathe fire. Right. And then the next person decides whether it costs 1 point, 2 points, or 3 points, or -1 points. If it costs 1 point or 2 points, it means in this setting, breathing fire is no big deal. If it costs 3 points, it might be that breathing fire in this setting is really rare and exceptional, right? If it costs -1 points, it means that for whatever reason in this setting, breathing fire is a detriment,
right?
And so the next person does their skill. And so we had some crazy things like, I think our character had toothpick level 5, right? They were a level 5 in toothpick. And then you make a decision about what, and so you go around adding up all these strange, equipment and stats and things like that and skills and abilities. And then at the end, once you're out of all the points that you can spend, you have this communal pool of points you're spending from. Once you're done with that, you then have a discussion about what the game is about. So you have a discussion about what your game is about, and I can't remember the details of ours except to say it was really fun. It was super fun. I liked it a lot. Everyone should try it once. It's a perfect thing to do just to kill a little bit of time. So
yeah, that just kind of seems like back when I was doing stage acting, having improv games as just kind of filler / ways to get your gears going and make sure everyone's like, oh, we're in the mood to be doing this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what, like a little, kind of to limber everybody up or whatever. Yeah. It was cool. It was fun. I liked it a lot. Carejen. I don't know where people find that. I think it's just online somewhere on the internet.
I think that's the same guy as Agent Down.
Oh, is it the Groundhog
Really?
guy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. All right. Well, I love Carejen. So cool. What's next? I guess then we all got together and played that night or that day and played Cheat Your Own Adventure.
Right. Which we've talked about a lot.
We have talked about a lot. It was great. I would refer listeners to episode Q. I don't know, 4.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Whatever episode it was, we talked about. I'm pretty sure it was episode 4. Actually, in all seriousness, go back and listen to it, where we basically were effusive with our praise of Cheat Your Own Adventure and crying and weeping for joy. It was so great. These games that we played 2 rounds of it this recent time. They were really fun. One thing I want to add or just note about it. One of the things you do in the game is you roll on this table to determine the name of your choose your own adventure book, right? And that's like and I think we ended up with Caves of Ice.
The Catacombs of Ice.
The Catacombs of Ice, yeah. And so we made the decision beforehand. We were going to roll a title for the book and then play the game twice, but tell 2 very different stories with that same title. And so the first one was a very standard pulp adventure kind of story. And then the second one we played was about a marriage dissolving. So, and it was pretty great. It
was good.
Liked it. A lot of fun. We probably should have given the game a little more context for brand new listeners, but go back and listen to the archives, folks. Cheat Your Own Adventure is awesome. And can be easily found online. Just Google Cheat Your Own Adventure. It's free. Terrific, terrific little game. Probably I would have to say, that's probably my favorite new game of the last, year or so.
Yeah, good game to get your friends who are not into role-playing games playing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's terrific. So Cheat Your Own Adventure is badass. So that leads to the next thing on our list, which is Sorcerers and Sellswords. Is that correct? Am I looking at that correctly?
You are.
Sorcerers and Sellswords. So Sorcerers and Sellswords is a hack, I guess, really, of John Harper's Lasers and Feelings. It's by Ray Otis. And the original game, Lasers and Feelings, is a 1-page role-playing game by John Harper. The setting is pulp science fiction or like Star Trek, that kind of thing. Original series Star Trek, 1950s sci-fi, like just cheesy pulp sci-fi, right? It's great. It's terrific. We love it. We've played it 100 times. It's really, really good. This hack of it, Sorcerers and Sellswords, is it may be obvious, it's a sword and sorcery version of it, a Conan, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser type version of Lasers and Feelings. We had a really good time with it. The game is meant to be played in one sitting. All of the rules are contained on one page, including your character sheet. It's very easy to get into. One of the things that Ray added to this game that I liked a lot was he made it so that if you do per se sorcery, it's harder. So let me back up a little bit. When you're making your character has a number. And if the number is low, it's between 1 through 5. If it's a low number, it means your character is good at sorcery. If it's a high number, it means they're good at swords. These words, sorcery and swords, are generic terms for bigger category. It's a bigger category than that. So sorcery means like emotion or like emotional action or like passionate action. It can mean per se sorcery, like actual sorcery and magic, that kind of thing. Whereas swords can be weapons, tools, fighting, but also like calm, precise action. That's swords. Okay. So your character is going to be, depending on what number you pick for them, they're going to be on a scale. They're like good at sorcery or swords, or maybe they're equally good at both. If you pick like 3 is your number, right? Or 4. Basically, you use that number as kind of it plays into this mechanic that is very, very similar to Apocalypse World, where you have like high outcome, middle outcome, low outcome, right? That's all great. one of the things that Ray did with this particular version with this hack is per se sorcery is a little harder to do. You can't add as many dice to your roll as easily. And so it's a little tougher, which I guess is supposed to be reflective of the fact that sorcery is dangerous. Like magic is dangerous. Right. It's a dangerous world.
You normally add dice when? If you're an expert and if you're prepared?
Yeah, so the way it works is you roll a die. You get one die just because you're doing something.
Right.
You get another die if you're an expert at what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You get a third die if you are prepared, if you've taken the time to prepare. Right. And then you can also get helping dice from people as well. In sorcery, it's just a little harder. You can't really prepare for sorcery. You have to spend a lot more time preparing to do sorcery if you want to get that die for it.
So is it just a narrative difference?
I guess so. Yeah, yeah. Well, you would have to really narrate heavily your character preparing to cast this spell in order to get the preparation die for sorcery. Right. Now, here's the thing. I loved it, and I want Ray to hear this. He listens to the podcast, so I know he'll hear this. But one thing I would change is I would go even harder on that aspect of the game. Because at most, you're maybe missing out on one die of the pool, right? With the sorcery thing. I think you could probably make it even tougher to do the sorcery to where the outcomes might be a little bit more it would just be a more risky, dangerous thing to do. And I think that would be genre appropriate. I think sorcery is not supposed to be something you can just do easily.
Sure, yeah.
And so if I would make one little change, that would be it. I would hit that even harder than he already did. I would make it very difficult to build your dice pool for actual, per se sorcery.
Well, I wonder though if you did that, if that wouldn't just encourage people to justify swords.
Well,
as
sure.
their role for everything. Because,
yeah.
The way it's set up, at least in Lasers and Feelings, is most of the time you could make a case for using either, right? In a lot of cases, I'm arguing passionately, so now I'm using feelings, but I am arguing logically, so now I'm using lasers, right?
Yeah.
I feel like the divide between those two things is so fluid that if you weight it too heavily against one,
you can
might
game
just
it a little bit. You can game it. Yeah, it can definitely be gamed a little bit. I think most of the time, as players, I think we're pretty good at sticking to the spirit of what the rules are, and not doing that. But I guess one thing you could do is maybe you could make the outcomes different for sorcery. Yeah. Maybe that might be the right answer. Still keep the dice the same, but if you're specifically casting magic, keeping in mind that sorcery can be any kind of thing that falls under that the broad capital S sorcery of the game, right? Meaning passionate action, emotion, reason, or not reason, but emotion, that kind of thing. I think maybe one thing you could do for the actual casting of magic, the per se sorcery, if you will, is to have a different outcome table. Maybe that's the answer.
That sounds like
to where there's more greater success potential, but harder failure potential or something. Yeah. I don't know. I just thought that was a cool little wrinkle that he was adding to the Lasers and Feelings formula, and it was very genre appropriate, for swords and sorcery fiction, and I immediately wanted it to be more.
Gotcha.
I was like, oh, that's cool. I wish it was even more. So, but we had a lot of fun with it. It was pretty awesome. That means we're going to go on to the next game on our list, and
that's me.
Yeah, what is it? I can't read it.
So that is Pickets and Blinds.
Oh yes, Pickets and Blinds.
Yeah, I want to hear about this.
Yes, I do too.
Yeah, I like how you put the game that I didn't like at the end, so I can go out on a big negative note here.
Oh, you don't have any other games after this?
No, this is it for me.
Well, you can just chime in while David and I talk about Dungeon World for 30 minutes. So
right, yeah. No, I was just gonna put the headphones down and leave.
Okay, well, you can do that as well. Yeah.
We're going to talk about elves a lot.
I know. Yeah, I've been trying to prepare myself for that, but I don't think I'm there yet. Pickets and Blinds.
We have an elf named Florian in the campaign.
Of course you do. Pickets and Blinds. This game is about murder in the suburbs. It kind of, I think, was supposed to have sort of a American Beauty kind of vibe to it, right? Where we're all living in the suburbs and everything is on the surface, everything is nice and calm, but underneath these things are bubbling up, and over the course of the game, every player will murder a character.
Okay.
And so you're sort of telling the story about how your everyday normal character builds up to wanting to murder someone. And by the end of the game, everyone should have murdered someone, and then you're scoring points along the way. I'll get into that in a minute.
This sounds amazing so far.
Oh, yeah.
I love it so far.
I love the pitch. Right. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to play it. But things went south. But we'll get to that. You're going along, everyone is committed to murder, and at the end, there's one person who will get away with it. like whoever has the most points, their character gets away with murder, and the rest of you all get caught and have to pay the price for like your horrible act of murder. Okay, so the way you play this game though is you take a deck of cards and you divide it in half, and you choose based on kind of the tone you want the game to be. You choose 2 suits, and so there's a tone that's like, you know, sort of everyday mundane things, and then there's the one we played was like gonzo shit, right?
Okay.
So, and all of the descriptions are really good. Like the guy who wrote it, I don't remember his name, but he's clearly a clever guy, and like it's fun to read, but it doesn't necessarily come across as a fun game. We were playing the gonzo version, right? So you have like half the deck is dedicated to what they call like story leads.
Okay.
And so before you start your scene, you will draw one of these cards, and there's a giant table, and you look at it, and the card you draw determines, like the first card determines what category it is. So maybe it's like snacks and snakes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Snacks and snakes?
Yes.
Okay.
And so it's things like a steaming cup of joe, or like a cobra, right?
Okay.
So you pull these things, and you are trying to work them into the scene in some way. And at the end of your scene, the other players sort of determine how well you worked it in and give you from 1 to 3 points.
This still all sounds really good so far.
Sort of. It's starting to go bad already.
Okay, all right. I'm ready for the down part of the roller coaster here.
When you pick your things, like a lot of these things are very funny and very clever when you're reading them off the tables, but they're also incredibly specific. And so you're telling your story, and you're at a part you've been building up to the scene, right? Where everyone knows there's a giant showdown coming, and this is where you're going to murder somebody, right? And so you read your lead, and it is something along the lines of, I spent all day yesterday watching Pocahontas on VHS. What we did to the Native Americans was terrible.
What?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of funny, but completely inappropriate to the scene. Like there's just this strange disconnect between the things you're drawing that you're supposed to be working in, because it has, I mean, there's no bearing on, like, you're not taking into consideration the story at all. And these things are just so like random and off the wall. Like, and it's not even necessarily because we chose the Gonzo one, because it wasn't that they were even necessarily weird. It was just that they didn't make sense, or they weren't interesting. So one of mine was fall, the season fall.
Or it wasn't just, maybe it was just the word fall, like to fall down.
No, because it was on the seasons chart.
Oh, okay. Oh.
And then I drew fall. Oh. So I was like, okay, well, I guess it's fall.
Okay,
so
right.
That's not much of a lead.
Yeah, we haven't specified, so I guess it's fall now. And then when I drew the next card that was snow deep enough to lose your dog in.
Okay, but that doesn't make sense.
I was like, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense because we just said it was fall.
Maybe there's somewhere where it snows in the fall.
Yeah, well.
Like that's really important.
And it's all supposed to take place over the course of a day. So you can't even like jump cut or anything, really.
Oh, so that's interesting. That's,
yeah.
Okay.
And
yeah, because with some flashbacks, you might be able to make that work, right?
Right, you could, but they kind of encourage you to just like push forward to like build to this murder, right?
Oh, I suddenly know why you don't like this. You don't like Carolina Death Crawl either. And I feel
That's
like there's
true.
a similar thing going on in Carolina Death Crawl. Maybe not as extreme as that, but you have those hands of cards that have just all those like rando, like,
that's true.
elements,
Yeah, that is a thing that I really dislike about Carolina Death Crawl.
You just have to shove them in there and make it work. Now, I love Carolina Death Crawl, but that's another day. That's a topic for another day. But that occurs to me.
Yeah,
That
it just feels intrusive.
Yeah, I know you don't like that, so I can see why you wouldn't like that. That makes sense.
Yeah, so there's that, which was super weird and not great. In addition to that, though, there's almost no interaction between the players. So you are literally telling a story, and the only time the other players are allowed to do anything is there's this whole other thing that I'm not going to bother getting into, where you're playing a memory game in between your turns and collecting cards.
That's okay.
You have a grid of cards in the middle of the table, and you're playing memory match.
Like matching things?
Yeah,
okay.
you're matching pairs and collecting pairs, and then you can cash in your pairs to add a complication to someone else's story.
Oh.
And that is the only interaction allowed between the players. And even that is like 2 sentences and you're out.
Right. Well, it sounds like there's so many steps to even get to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can't just like give complications. You have to win memory.
Right.
And collect
You have to have collected your matches in memory, and then you get points for turning in your matches.
Right.
And those points are like 2 to 3 times more than what you can earn by playing your leads in. So really, who the person who wins comes down to the person who got the most matches.
Is there any kind of like thematic reason that they kind of seem to have shoehorned memory into this game?
I mean, not that I could tell, honestly.
Okay.
It reads like a guy who was good at making lists of interesting things and wanted to like make a game around it, but was like, I need a mechanic. How about memory? So,
okay.
I don't know. I didn't love it.
Does it violate the what's that called, the Sega principle, or Paul Sega?
Oh, is that the one about like the same person shouldn't set their opposition
and the resolution?
Yes, it absolutely does.
Okay, yeah. Well, there you go. In action.
Yeah,
there it is.
like the only time it doesn't is when the complications come up. But I mean, especially initially, no one has matches in the beginning, so no one can interrupt you at all until matches start being made. So especially in the beginning, it's just
sounds
like,
awful. Yeah,
I am
really
just
bad.
kind of telling a story, and every scene has to lead up to a trigger, which is like violence or criminal activity or sex or meeting someone from someone else's story. And those things all are the trigger. And as soon as you hit that, then that's when you get to like play memory.
Got it.
And so then like you have to have this weird build in every scene to one of these activities. And a lot of them were just like obviously shoehorned into the last minute, right?
Okay.
Because you can't even end your scene until that happens. So.
Well, interesting.
Yeah, so it sounds like it does something that I don't usually enjoy in games, which is like the one person doing a lot of the storytelling and it not being very collaborative.
Exactly, yeah. That's the big problem.
Well, because you might get that situation where one person at the table is not good at being in the spotlight and a lot like rides on their shoulders. That sounds like another problem you could have with that game. When other people, by the rules, are not allowed to assist.
Yeah, but even beyond that, maybe this is on me, but I have a pretty short attention span when other people are talking. I'm just going to throw that out there. And like, just listening to somebody like tell a story, just listening to somebody tell a story uninterrupted for like 5 minutes is killing me.
Unless it's really good. You know what?
But even if it's really good, like it has so little bearing on what I'm doing. And so I'm focused on like where my story's going.
Yeah.
And I'm not paying attention to this person anymore.
Right,
like, you got like 2 minutes before I'm gone, and I'm thinking about what I'm doing next. So.
You know, George, who's in our Dungeon World game, he did this like 10-minute monologue about his character's past. It was fucking brilliant. It was so good.
It was great.
It was like, it was so good. I was just like, I was spellbound by it. I think you would have loved this. Like, it was really, really good. It was perfect. But anyway.
I am skeptical.
No, it really was. It was amazing. Well, okay, so anyway.
It was a production.
What a nice segue, though, to Dungeon World.
What a nice segue.
All right.
Do you have anything else you want to say about Pickets and Blinds?
No, I'm just going to head out.
Okay. We'll see you later.
All right.
I do want to say about that game, I heard about it at one of the events. And
we've all been making up our own little sentences for the leads.
Oh, you should, because like those are great.
Yeah, so I want to say like Jeff came up with a great one, and I would challenge the listeners, please do write in and submit us.
Send us your rando leads.
Yes.
I don't know. No one's going to do that, but
but it would be terribly great fun if you did.
we kind of spent like during the weekend, we were like just making up like leads for that game based off the examples you gave us in the G+ post.
Okay,
we were kind of doing our own, so I don't remember any of them.
Like
but.
Jeff did. They say it's Dr. Pepper, but it looks more like Mountain Dew.
Yeah, that would have worked.
That would have worked. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, so we played the very last thing on the list. We've played tons and tons of Dungeon World since we last recorded.
Dungeon World.
David's over here fist pumping, and Dan's getting a drink of water.
Dungeon World Love Fest.
Yeah, it was great. Well, so why don't you start, David, because you did some unauthorized gaming in Dallas. So how'd that go?
Well, like all illicit things,
right?
There is some fun just from it being illicit.
Oh, yeah.
So I felt like I was cheating on the gauntlet, and it just felt better maybe because of that.
Note to future love interests of David.
Right, seriously.
Yes.
You're coming off as real sketchy here.
Yeah, well, I just made that up on the fly. That's not true.
You can say it. It's fine.
You don't have to walk it back now.
You don't have to walk it back.
The really great thing about the Dallas group is that they're so new to role playing and they're so enthusiastic.
Yeah.
They've been some long-term friends of mine, and they approached me. They're like, you play a lot of games, right? And I was like, yeah. Have you ever played like D&D or anything like that? I'm like, I've played things like that. Why do you ask? They're like, we're kind of thinking about trying it out. We saw it on some TV show that they were playing D&D, and we thought it seemed fun. And I was like,
was it Community?
No, I think it was
or Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory. Yeah, that's the one. And so I was like, all right, sure, I'll be your DM and, run something for you. But then it got a lot more elaborate, and we kind of started to put together kind of an anthology, and they were really into that. But I didn't want to do D&D. I wanted to do Dungeon World. And they were like, what's that? And I was like, it's the way of the future. And you're going to love it way more than you would ever like D&D. Like, D&D might look sexy on Big Bang Theory.
Just cut out the middle, man. That's what I say.
Yeah. I don't understand how anyone can watch people playing D&D on TV and be like, I want to do that. Because
I don't know.
Jesus Christ. Everyone oh God. It just makes me cringe. Like, my skin crawl when I see people badly playing D&D on TV.
I don't know. I watched that episode of Community where they're playing D&D.
It looks awesome.
It's terrible.
And I've played tons of D&D, so they weren't doing it right. But I remember thinking, man, if I wasn't into D, I'd want to play that.
Right.
I totally
Community
want to
makes
play
it
that.
look real fun.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen those Community
I thought
episodes.
the opposite. I was like, I've played D&D and this makes me want to go crawl in a hole.
Wow.
So,
Jeez.
yeah.
Well, I thought it was, I don't know. I thought like Community, I haven't seen Big Bang Theories, but,
Freaks and Geeks is the only show that ever did justice
they did
to
D&D.
D&D.
Yeah. I think Community made fun of it, but like from a place of love, which is why I liked it.
Yeah,
So-
I liked it because it made it look fun and interesting. Big Bang Theory was much more like
They were just making
realistic.
fun of it.
Yeah, well, it was much more realistic. Like,
Oh.
the premise of Big Bang Theory is like, here's nerds and we're making fun of them being nerds.
Right, yeah.
So they're doing their number crunching and stuff in Big Bang Theory much more on screen.
Oh.
And you're like, that doesn't look like much fun.
Well, anyway, off topic. So,
Anyways.
back to your Dallas game.
The Dallas
Back
game.
to Dungeon World.
Dungeon World. We had a blast. I had a talk with them beforehand. I said, it's very important that you realize we're telling stories here, and the story is the most important thing. Love your characters, be a fan of your characters, but don't be afraid of them, like, getting hurt or dying. Mm-hmm. Don't try and protect them from every single thing that's out there. Make them be an adventurer.
Right, yeah.
And they bought into that. They appropriately protected their characters, but they were very much,
They weren't being boring.
No, they weren't being boring
Yeah.
at all. They were telling great story, and we did have a character death in about the first 40 minutes.
Can I just say, I may have had this rant before. There is nothing worse in role-playing games than someone saying, my character wouldn't do that. I fucking hate that.
I'm pretty sure we've
Have we had that
covered
rant?
this territory in the past.
Okay. When you say my character wouldn't do that for the sole and for the express purpose of shutting down the fiction, like you're just like, someone gives you some great option and you're like, my character wouldn't do that. You should go kill yourself.
Well, I'm going to say that's true unless your character actually would not do that.
Well,
unless it's not a good option, in which case,
I guess it depends on the circumstances, of course. But if you're just a person who's like, oh, my character wouldn't do that. My character wouldn't do that. I just feel like you're having your own little story and you're not being interesting. So I don't know.
I could argue the other side of that.
I know.
That'll be a discussion for another day.
I think I could also argue the other side of it, but whenever it happens, I always just feel particularly peeved by it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've been that character, and I still stand behind the times that I said, there's no way my character would do that. I'm not going to do that. But I always try and come up with an interesting alternative.
A reason for an alternative. Yeah. When you just shut down, when you just say, my character would do that, and then you just like push away from the table. That's what I don't like. So.
Oh yeah, no, that's abandoning the story.
So yeah, your players were totally into it. They're
really
being
into
adventurous.
it. We had
Awesome.
character death, and
I love it.
in the first 40 minutes, which for a new group of players, that can be really hard. But we took it in stride, and it was beautiful.
Did you do something special for the dead character?
Oh, we did. And the interesting thing is he had a choice. Death gave him a choice. In Dungeon World, it is a mechanical thing where you get one last chance after you have died, in quotation marks, to potentially have Death say, no, not yet.
Right, yeah.
And this was a time when Death gave them the option to come back to life, but they had to give up something. And they said, no, my character wouldn't do that.
That's better. That's a better use of my character wouldn't do that because they're not doing it to protect their character.
Right.
They're doing it because it makes sense in the fiction.
Right. Death asked for the ranger's pet, and he was extremely loyal to the wolf. And we had a beautiful scene where he breathed his last.
and then the wolf ate him.
That would have not been a great option.
Yes.
But the dog had similar peril, but the dog stood up and started licking his master and trying to keep other people away and trying to revive him. And it was we had to take 5 after
that's
that.
Sad.
It was
Yeah,
rough. It was rough.
That's a good last breath, though.
It was good.
Yeah.
But we took that 5 minutes to write a new character, which you can do in Dungeon World in 5 minutes.
Yes.
And he ran up and he was in the story just like that.
Good. Yeah, that's great.
Just like that.
That sounds awesome.
It was great. Great session.
You guys gonna keep it going?
Yes.
Cool.
I have told them I've tried to make it a consistent thing. I said, once a month we're going to do this.
Cool.
And they're on board with that. So maybe it'll become more often, and I'll just kind of ease them into it.
Good. You have my permission to do that once a month. That's good.
Thank you.
That's acceptable. Well, I also played lots of Dungeon World. Actually, David, you played lots of Dungeon World with me as well. We had lots of things going on, Dungeon World related this week. In addition to our normal Thursday game, which actually ended. There's no more Thursday games. We went immediately from the Thursday game to a 3-day long, weekend long Dungeon World thing. So we played Dungeon World.
I believe they call that a bender.
Thank you,
Bender.
Bender. We played Dungeon World. So we basically played Dungeon World with Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, or Saturday, all day Saturday, and then Sunday afternoon. It was tremendous. I loved it. The principal thing we were doing on the weekend was that OSR module, Death, Frost, Doom. That module is really interesting in a lot of ways. I love it in a lot of ways. It's definitely not my normal style of Dungeon World game. It's very different, like the way I normally run games. Because it's got a lot of OSR-isms, like it's very like metal, which is specifically a Lamentations thing,
Okay.
Like just the name of the mountain is Death Frost Mountain, right? Like, what's more metal than that? I don't think anything. You actually play heavy metal music during it.
Really?
Yeah. So like there's this, okay, if people don't want to have the story of Death Frost Doom ruined for them, you should probably turn the podcast off, right now and come back or just skip ahead a little bit. So, in the story, there's this thing that's kind of central to the adventure. It's called the Sacred Parasite, and you can hear it long before you can see it.
It plays heavy metal music.
It's singing this heavy metal song by this band called Celtic Frost, called like the dying god come into flesh or something, and like Dan's losing it right now.
It's appropriate reaction.
Yes, it's called Dying God Come Unto Flesh. And
so do you make it get louder and louder as it comes closer? It's like heavy metal Jaws.
Well, yes. Well, so it doesn't move. It's in one place. But as your characters move through the dungeon, you're supposed to alter the volume level. So it's real quiet at first because you're outside of the dungeon, but you can hear it.
How long is this song?
Oh, you just loop it for it. You just loop it. Yeah, you just loop it the whole time, and you raise the volume and lower the volume.
Now I understand how they bring the aspect of you have to be a crazy person to go into dungeons, right? Because there's literally a single heavy metal song playing on loop the entire time. Well, Jesus.
So the characters don't perceive it as heavy metal music, though, Dan. To them, it's like otherworldly screeching and and strangely articulate,
Yeah.
So that was an aspect of the game that was, we were having fun with it. It was fun, but it was definitely not in my style of GMing, right?
Yeah.
Apart from just its basic sort of cheesiness, right? I don't play music during games, Yeah, there's sort of strange, sort of, what do you call that when something's the time doesn't make sense?
Anachronism.
Yeah, the strange little anachronism was a thing. There's also this point where where they're in this cabin and you play this harpsichord music. So
awesome.
And they don't specify a harpsichord song, so I just picked one from the internet. And but Russ came back from the bathroom while it was playing, for the first time, and he's like, "Oh, I guess we're in Luigi's Mansion now." So. The module is very interesting. It's definitely not my normal style of DW game. I loved it. It was fun to do. But it's a funny module because there's almost no fighting, except until the very end when you just fight a bunch of bosses, right? So you have no fights basically until you get to the tombs of the greater repugnances, and then you fight these hard as hell bosses, right?
That seems really good for Dungeon World, even more than it would for
for D&D. Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it actually does play. It actually does play okay in Dungeon World. It makes a lot of sense in Dungeon World because a lot of what you're doing in the dungeon is just learning about the lore of this cult and and kind of finding things and trying to and Dungeon World actually facilitates that because the DR, the Discern Realities move and the Spout Lore move kind of guarantee or ensure that that the players are going to pick up a lot of that stuff, right? Maybe not all of it, but they're going to pick up some of it. And so it actually does work quite well in Dungeon World. It was just a kind of a different style of game, I guess. It's got this like a lot of OSR modules, it has a timer. So there's an in-fiction timer, like these skulls that are like gradually dropping down to the ground.
Okay.
You know, and I kind of like made that my grim portents in the game. Like whenever the characters rolled a 6 or if they were just dawdling, I'd like ominously cross off a skull, you know, on the little card, you know, that kind of thing. I guess the whole thing, the thing about Death Frost Doom is how you sell it. I think you're supposed to like really sell the like tension, the building tension of it. I added in some monster fights that were not originally in the module that felt necessary to me.
Thank God.
Yeah, I well, because David was playing a fighter, and so like for the whole first Friday session, we didn't have any fights. So it was like, but I added in some fights for Saturday, just because that. I just kind of, it felt like I was trying to, it felt like appropriate. And I tried to make it like thematically appropriate. They weren't just like random monsters. They were like monsters that served a purpose. But
so it's like dudes running out and hitting people with guitars.
No, nothing like that. But
riding on dragons.
but one big change we made was so we're going to be moving into Zach Smith's A Red and Pleasant Land for the next few weeks or 6 weeks really, and so I kind of changed the ending of Death Frost Doom to kind of lead us into that, and so that was very easy to do actually. Like that was a pretty easy transition to make, so I was pretty pleased with that. David, what were your thoughts on all of that?
I always love playing Dungeon World.
Right.
And this is my first go around with a fighter.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best time to be doing that.
Yeah. It was not the most fightery session for sure. No.
Yeah. I got a little bit just worn out on Discern Realities.
Yeah, it was a lot of Discern Realities. It was a lot of Discern Realities, a lot of spout lore.
Yeah.
It was just spout lore, Discern Realities, spout lore, Discern Realities.
I've kind of got that problem in general with Dungeon World, actually.
Oh, well,
and
this module
Jesus Christ,
is that times
quit
10.
looking for traps, thief.
Yeah.
We get it. You can look for traps.
Let me tell you what, though. So on Sunday, we had finished Death Frost Doom on Saturday, and on Sunday we started I made just a regular, more traditional, designed by me Dungeon World, dungeon, classic abandoned dwarven keep, right? But with a Skynet like twist, though. I don't want to go into it, but involving automatons. Let me tell you, they don't have a thief in the party.
Good.
And they don't have a fighter in the party. Like
I bet you don't even miss them.
The group I had on Sunday did not have a thief. We did not have a thief. We had no warrior types and no thief. They're getting their asses kicked. Like they were getting their asses kicked. They had to eventually, but it was good because they had to like, some of the more like seasoned Dungeon World players at the table had to really stop and like reevaluate how they proceed through the dungeon because they were just so accustomed to having the thief in the front, finding all the traps or not finding the traps or whatever, right? But like having the thief like be the front line of that, without a thief, let me tell you, it like they had to really, really like sit back and like reevaluate how they're going to like get through this alive, and I kind of enjoyed that. That was interesting. And Dungeon World handles it well. Dungeon World handles it ably. Like it lets you like adjust your strategy, for navigating the dungeon to where it feels like you're using your character's strengths to navigate the dungeon as opposed to,
right,
just letting the thief do it. Right. So that was interesting. But yeah, so Sunday we moved into kind of a little mini side quest thing, another little piece of the mega dungeon I've been doing till we move in fully into Red and Pleasant Land. So all in all, it was a lot of fun. The classic Death Frost Doom module was fun to experience.
Felt a little bit like Cabin in the Woods.
Very
playing
strong.
In Dungeon World.
Yeah,
and then turning into a dungeon.
Yeah. It was the whole first session did have a Cabin in the Woods vibe. Like you go to this cabin in the woods on a mountain, and there's a book. Like there's like an evil book, and
there's a harbinger before you get there.
Yeah, there's a harbinger. There's like this old man who's like, "You're doomed. You're all doomed."
Don't go up there. It's cursed.
Right? Yeah, it had all of that. You're right. It had all.
Don't
of that.
go to Death Frost Mountain. Let me break this to you. Death Frost Mountain is a dangerous place to go.
You go in the cabin. It's a wooden cabin. There's a creepy hatch on the floor that's chained up. There's like one bedroom. It's really quiet. There's lots of creepy artifacts.
It was good fun. We always have a good time, and there's really, I have to say, there's really nothing like playing Dungeon World with like friends that you've been playing Dungeon World with for a while, right? Like there's really nothing like it. Like it's really, really, it's very special, and it's a good time. So yeah, Dungeon World. Is that our list?
I think that's it.
That's all we got.
That's all we got. Well, that was a good little catch-up episode. Glad to be back. Listeners, if you'd like to get in touch with us, the best way to do that is via Google+. Go to Google+ Communities and search for The Gauntlet, and you will find us. If you would like to, if you have any feedback on the episodes or whatever, let us know. We often incorporate the feedback into the show or read the feedback on the air. We also have an email address that nobody uses. I think I'm just going to stop giving out the email address, honestly.
All right.
So let's just
You've been
fuck
threatening it long enough.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm done with the email address. That's it. Thank you so much for joining us, David.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
All right. See you, everybody.